Morning, students. In the series of the general anatomy of joints, today is the second video. Okay, yesterday we learned about the classification of the joints. Today we will be learning about the structure of the synovial joint. I am passing to the next slide. Now, let us first see the characteristic of the synovial joint. Yesterday I told you that the synovial joints are the most predominant joint of our body. Most of the joint in our body, they are synovial. कहने का मतलब ये है कि हमारी बॉडी में जो भी जॉइंट्स हैं उसमें ज़्यादातर साइनोवियल जॉइंट होते हैं. ओके, एंड इन साइनोवियल जॉइंट characteristic is that there is a presence of the cavity that is known as the synovial cavity. That's why they are called as synovial joint. In this diagram where I am moving my cursor, you can see that between the two bones, okay, these ends of the two bones which are forming the joint, there is a presence of a cavity covered by the articular capsule. Okay, so there is the first characteristic of a synovial joint. To classify it to be a synovial joint is that there should be a synovial cavity or articular cavity, also it is called as. Okay, now second important characteristic of synovial joint is that the ends of these bones which are forming the joint, they are covered by the articular cartilage, which is hyaline in nature. Okay, there are three types of cartilage. I must have told you, that is hyaline, fibrous and fibro. I would say hyaline, elastic and fibrocartilage. So the ends of long bone which are forming the synovial joint is covered by the articular cartilage. That is the second characteristic of a synovial joint. The third characteristic of a synovial joint is that it is surrounded by the articular capsule. You can see here with the green line, this thin green line where I am moving my cursor, which is joining the ends of the two bones. Okay, this is called as the articular capsule, which is made up of fibers. We will see further detail of this. Now this fibrous capsule, the fourth characteristic is that it has to be lined by a membrane, which is here indicated in the red line. Okay, and that is called as the synovial membrane. So these are the four characteristics. Now I am passing to the next slide where we will learn about the structure of a synovial joint. So you have learned, okay, to which joint we should call as a synovial joint. Now what are the structure of a synovial joint, where we learn it in detail. Most of the joint, as I said, in our body are synovial variety. Okay, where these all four characters are found. In a synovial joint, there is presence of a cavity, which I have already told you, between the two articulating bones. Okay, and synovial joints permit free movement, hence called as diarthrosis. Yesterday we learned in our previous video in the classification of the joints that diarthrosis joints are those joints where free movements are possible, which is possible only in the synovial joint because there is a cavity. Next, passing to the next slide. Okay, continuing with the structure of synovial joint. Okay, here you can see that these are the parts of a synovial joint. As far as we come to the anatomical structure of a synovial joint, we will see each and every synovial joint will contain this many parts. There will be an articular cartilage, which I said that the ends of the bones which are forming the joint, they are covered by the articular cartilage. Okay, then there is a capsule, this green color thin line capsule, and that is called as the fibrous capsule. There will be a synovial membrane, this red color line connecting the two bones. There will be a strong fibrous ligament, which is shown here on the outside, where it is written as articular capsule. That is called as the ligament. Just above the articular, this is called as the ligaments, which is said here as the true ligaments there. And then this is not shown in this diagram, the fifth part, that means some of the joint may contain a articular disc or a menisci, which I will tell you just after a few slides. Okay, so these are the various parts of the articular, of a structure of a synovial joint. Now let us discuss these structures which forms a synovial joint, okay, one after the other, okay, we will just see it one after the other. Let us see here, articular cartilage. Here you are seeing the hip joint, very roughly drawn hip joint, and in this blue color there is a lining covering to the ends of the head of the femur and then to the acetabular cavity of the hip bone, both these articulating areas which comes in contact with each other the bones, they are called as articulating area. It is covered by the hyaline cartilage, which is called as articular cartilage. Okay, so this articular surface, that's why become very smooth and the movements between the two bones become easy. इस तरह से दो बोन्स के बीच में काफ़ी मूवमेंट इसलिए पॉसिबल है क्योंकि फ्रिक्शन नहीं होता, क्योंकि आर्टिकुलर कार्टिलेज बहुत ही स्मूथ सरफेस बनाती है, so it reduces the friction during the movement. The articular cartilage is mostly in most of the joint except few, it is hyaline in nature, as I have already told you, cartilage. But in one or two joint it may be fibrocartilaginous. These are exception which I will tell you when I will come to this joint, okay, which joints are exception. Okay, and what is the, beside this reducing the friction, the other important function of this articular cartilage in a joint is that they act as shock absorber. Okay, that means they are not hard as bone, they are firm, but they are having some elasticity. I mean, say resilience is there. They act as a pillow during the jerks. Okay, when you jump, okay, you run, so that the ends of the bones, they are just impacting each other, and that is the shock absorption between these two articulating bone is absorbed by this articular cartilage, beside making a smooth surface for the avoidance of the friction when the movement is taking place. So the cartilage act as a shock absorber. Why it act as a shock absorber? There is a lot of water content in this cartilaginous tissue, and it is not having the deposition of the mineral salt like calcium, which is there in the bone. Bones are very hard. Thus imagine that what would have happened to this joint, okay, or articular surfaces which are forming the joint without this cartilage, because bone is hard, okay, and it cannot act as a cushion, it cannot. So let's come to the second, and the second part is the articular capsule. Here when I'm moving this my cursor here, the green color thin line you see on both the side, okay, that is the articular capsule, and this joins the articulating bone, one bone with that of the other bone, okay, and imagine it into three dimension. Okay, this is just a cross section, but you think over that this capsule covers all around to this joint, it is covered by all around to this joint. So these two ends of the bones of adjacent bone which are forming the joint, they are completely enclosed in a sheath of the articular capsule. Okay, and this articular capsule is made up of the dense irregular connective tissue, which is collagen fibers. Okay, and this is important. Why this should be inelastic? Because this should attach the ends of two bones very firmly, and while the joint is bending, movements are taking place. If this membrane would have been elastic, then there would have not been. You could have stretched your joint capsule, that will not serve the purpose, okay, that will. So it should be a capsule which are connecting the two bones, surrounding the two ends of the bone, completely in-sheathing it, should be always inelastic, so that it gives stability and the firmness to that of the joint. Now this joint is richly supplied by sensory nerve. That means if you get a sprain, okay, which is nothing injury to this capsule of the joint, as you must have, I mean to say, suffered sometime in your life, the sprain, mostly ankle sprain, is there where there is a lot of pain. And why there is a pain in a joint? Because it is supplied, very richly supplied with the sensory nerve, this articular capsule. This is also supplied with the blood vessels, okay, and this blood vessel and now they pierce this articular capsule to go and also supply to the deeper structure like synovial membrane. I am passing to the third part of the caps, I mean say this structure of the joint, and this is the synovial membrane. The synovial membrane, as I said, that this red color line, okay, is made up of two layers. Histologically, under the microscope, if you will see, it is made up of two layers. Outer is a fibrous layer and the inner layer, which is facing towards joint cavity, is cellular in nature, okay, and this is highly vascular. That means lot of blood vessels are supplying to it. Nerve is also supplying to it, as I just told you, okay. So a synovial membrane is lining, it covers. Let us see where it is covering. It is covering the inner surface of the articular capsule, see here. But then it is also covering to the ends of the long bones which are forming the joint. So it is also covering to the bony surface all around. Imagine it into 3 dimensions. Okay, till I would say this covering is up to where the capsule is attached, okay. So that part, that means synovial membrane, after covering the capsule inner surface, then it reflects onto that of the bone, that part of the bone which is within the capsule, that is called as intracapsular part. But then it stops at the margin of the hyaline cartilage or this blue color articular. It is not covering to the articular cartilage. So what part of the joint are covered by the synovial membrane? It is the inner aspect of the fibrous capsule. It is the parts of the bone which are within the capsule, intra-articular part, but it doesn't cover the hyaline cartilage. And this cartilage, because they come in contact with each other and movements takes place between the two bones at the cartilage itself, so that's why it is not covered, okay. So you should remember which part of the joint are covered by synovial membrane and which part are not covered by it. Now why this synovial membrane is present in a joint? It has a special purpose since it is richly supplied with the blood and the nerve. Okay, this membrane is involved in the secretion of the lubricating fluid. A minimal quantity of lubricating fluid is constantly being secreted, which is covering to the articular cartilage. It is highly in nature, that secretion, and hence it provides the further smoothness to that of the surface, so that there is absolutely no friction, because this friction avoidance, or that why friction is not there, the first point is that it is covered by smooth articular cartilage. Second, the lubricating action of the synovial fluid avoids the friction between the two joints. Coming to the fourth part of a synovial joint is articular capsule. You can see this broad line, stapled line, which I have drawn here. It is the ligament. It is outside the articular capsule. Ligaments are always either they are the part of the ligaments, I mean say capsule, thickening of the capsule itself form the ligament. At certain places the capsules become especially thickened, called as true ligament. That means capsule itself will become thick and form a ligament, okay, and that is a true ligament. Ligament is a band of collagen fiber. What is ligament? It is the band. Articular capsule was also itself the membrane of the, or a layer of the collagen, but this ligament is also the collagen, but it is a strong band. It is rope-like structure, flattened rope-like structure in most of the joint, okay, right, just resembling to that of your nylon rope, which you cannot stretch. It is inelastic. So this is ligaments is a band of collagen fibers which joins the end of the bone, thus hold the ends of the bone close together. It will not, it is inelastic, it will not stretch, so it will provide to you the stability to that of the joint, because it is connecting the two bone, okay. Ligaments allows the movement in one plane. That means this strong band of the fibrous tissue, which are called as ligament, are only present in one of the directions where the movements are minimal. It is not present in that direction where, or it is very thin where movements are there, in that plane where the movements, that I will explain later in the next video, okay. Right, then some joints may have an accessory. This was a true ligament which is fusing with that of the capsule here, as it is shown in the first diagram. But this is another joint which is called as the temporomandibular joint, or the joint of our lower jaw, and here the ligament is away from the joint. That means it is extending between this bony process, what is called as styloid process, going right up to the lower end of the our mandible jaw. It is away from the joint itself, and hence this is said to be an accessory ligament, okay, which is little away, but it is serving the same purpose of providing the stability to that of the joint, okay, to that of the joint. So I hope that you must have understood what is the ligament. Coming to the last structural point, and it is the articular disc and menisci. Sometime within the capsule of the joint, that is an intra-articular area where the cavity is present, the cavity may sometime be divided by into the two compartments because of the presence of a articular disc. And why it is called articular disc? Because it is inside the joint. Articulation means joint. Hence this disc is will be dividing the capsule, I mean say joint cavity into two, as you are seeing here. This is that articular disc which is made up of the fibrocartilage, not hyaline cartilage as we have just seen, which is articular and covering to the surface of the bone. See here, it is the articular cartilage is here, but this blue color disc, it is the fibrocartilaginous in nature here, okay, and it is dividing the joint cavity within the capsule and within the true ligament it into two different compartments. And this is necessary, number one, I would say the purpose which articular discs are serving within a joint. And another incomplete articular disc is also seen in the knee joint here, where they are called as menisci, okay, and these are also interposed between the two articulating bone, here femur above and the tibia below, and this is an incomplete disc is here. Here it is a complete disc here, and they serve special purpose. Number one purpose which I was trying to tell you is that it is acting as a shock absorber, okay. Those joints which are subjected to a lot of the compressive forces, they has to be, I mean say strong enough, otherwise the articular cartilage and bone will expose, it will be, I will say, destroyed, okay, injured. So that to avoid that injury to the articulating bones, this disc is there. Second important function of this menisci and disc is that it divides the joint into two compartments. Thus the action which takes place in upper compartment is different than the action which takes place in the lower compartment. I am not going into detail of this action. I will teach you when I will come to the knee joint, okay, knee joint. Just remember that the purpose of articular disc and menisci which are present in a cavity of the joint, okay, in a cavity, right. To the next, that is the last slide probably, yes, applied anatomy. Okay, in the first diagram what you are seeing is the knee joint, where this is the lower end of the femur and tibia, and these two bones, they are away from, there is a gap is seen. Now this gap is seen because these ends of the bones, they are covered by hyaline cartilage or articular cartilage, as I just told you, and that's why, because cartilage doesn't cause shadow in the x-ray, that area is seen as a black shadow, okay, because cartilage is not containing the calcium salt in it, hence it doesn't is seen in the x-rays, okay, that's why this gap. So don't think that there is a gap. These two articular surfaces covered by articular cartilage are always in contact with each other, okay. Now this articular cartilage in old age gets destroyed because of constant friction of the decades, they get destroyed. और उसके बाद क्या होता है, because ये आर्टिकुलर कार्टिलेज अगर डिस्ट्रॉयड हो जाएंगे फीमर से या टीबिया से या दोनों से, तो बोन एक्सपोज हो जाएगी, उसके तुरंत नीचे बोन है, और बोन इज हैविंग the nerve supply. Cartilage is avascular, there is no blood vessel in cartilage, there is no nerve supply of cartilage, so it has no sensation cartilage. and once the cartilage is gone from the surface, okay, destroyed, then bone will expose and then a person will start feeling the pain. This is a diagram or x-ray, okay, from a person who is suffering from the disease what is called as osteoarthritis. That means here the cartilage layer is gone from this side completely and the bone are resting with each other, almost they are fusing with each other, okay, because there is no black shadow in between, the two cartilage is gone, it is destroyed. So the breakage of cartilage exposes the bone and sensory nerves. So the person in old age, you must have seen, they are always having the pain in their knee joint because of this the disease called as osteoarthritis, which is the disease of the old age. Okay, it is the disease. And just to, I mean to say, to remove the pain, okay, the people now go for the knee replacement, knee joint replacement, where the metallic and plastic material is fitted onto the articular surface, and since this plastic and the metallic structures, they are not sensitive to pain because they are not supplied, a person doesn't feel the pain because that bone which were having the friction, okay, during movement is now not coming in contact, okay, not coming, so that pain is not there, okay pen. So this is the osteoarthritis and the total knee replacement is here, okay. Now you, as I said, that this ligament is now having the nerve supply, then other thing which are having the nerve supply in is articular capsule, synovial membrane, all they are now having the nerve supply except the cartilage, okay. So whenever there is injury to the ligament or to the articular capsule, as we get in the sprain, we feel lot of pain, okay, and this ligament which get injured or ruptured in some cases, this will lead to the swelling and the pain and restricted movement. You will not be able to walk properly if your ankle joint or knee joint is having the sprain or injury, okay, sprain or injury. Thank you very much for watching this video. It became a little longer, but I hope that you have understood it properly. In the next video, what I am going to do will teach you further.